The chains rattled louder than the morning bell as Marcus stumbled across the dirt field of Angola Prison, sweat burning his eyes. He had been working the fields for 14 hours straight, cutting grass under the burning Louisiana sun. But today, something felt wrong. A guard on horseback suddenly stopped watching everyone else and locked his eyes on Marcus like he was picking his next target. Then he shouted, "You! Step forward. Warden wants you in Red Row. Now!" Red Row, the place of hardest labor, harsh punishment, and men whose days were almost done. Marcus froze. Why him? What did the warden want? And how could everything go wrong after he tried so hard to stay invisible? Right there, surrounded by tired inmates and armed guards, Marcus felt the fear rise in his chest. Whatever waited in Red Row could change his life forever, or end it. But how did he end up here? How did everything lead to this terrifying moment? Let's go back to the beginning. The first time Marcus saw Angola Prison, the sun was just waking up. From the prison bus window, he saw fields stretching farther than his eyes could follow. It didn't look like a prison. It looked like a giant farm with fences, barns, and guards on horses. Marcus whispered, "Is this really jail?" The older man beside him shook his head. "This ain't jail, kid. This is Angola. It changes a man." Marcus didn't understand those words, but he would. When the bus doors opened, guards shouted commands. The men were handed rough cotton uniforms and heavy boots that didn't fit. The rules were simple, but scary. Work when they say work. No complaining. No slowing down. Don't look a guard in the eyes. And keep your mouth shut. Marcus kept his head low. He wasn't tough. He wasn't dangerous. He just made a bad choice with the wrong people, and now he was in the hardest prison in America. At first, the work seemed normal. Pulling weeds, cleaning barns, carrying bags of feed. But Angola turns normal into hard, and turns hard into something painful. One day, Marcus saw a man collapse from heat. He didn't move, didn't speak, didn't even open his eyes. The guard on horseback didn't care. "Get him up. We ain't stopping, That was the day Marcus truly felt fear. Weeks turned into months. Marcus tried to stay invisible. No trouble, no fights, just survive. But Angola had different plans. On a quiet Tuesday morning, while Marcus pushed a rusty wheelbarrow, a guard yanked his horse around and rode straight toward him. Dust flew everywhere. The guard pointed. "You, drop it. Warden wants a word." Everything stopped. Every prisoner around Marcus stared. This wasn't normal. It wasn't good. It meant something big was coming. The guard leaned down from his saddle and said, "Starting today, you're moving to the hard labor line." Marcus felt his heart drop. He had heard stories about the hard labor line. Everyone had, and no one came back the same. Marcus arrived at the hard labor line at sunrise. The air was thick with dust and sweat. The men there were older, stronger, and silent, each carrying heavy tools like hoes, shovels, and wheelbarrows. A guard barked, "Move it. You're slower than a dead mule." Marcus struggled to keep up. Every step felt like carrying a mountain. His arms ached. His back burned. Every swing of the shovel seemed endless. He looked around and saw men gritting their teeth but still working. Some whispered prayers under their breath. Some stared at nothing, lost in their own thoughts. Marcus realized, hey, faith and focus were just as important as strength. By the third day, Marcus noticed a small act that kept men alive. One older inmate quietly handed him a worn Bible. "Read this if you want to survive," he said. At first, Marcus didn't believe in much, but he began reading passages quietly at night when the guards weren't looking. The words brought a strange comfort. It wasn't magic. It wasn't escape. It was hope, something stronger than the scorching sun, heavier workloads, and the anger of guards. Days merged into weeks. Marcus learned the rhythm. Wake up, wake, sleep, repeat. He watched the men around him. Some cracked under pressure. Some found ways to survive with quiet determination. Some disappeared from the line entirely. Rumors that they were moved to solitary or worse. Marcus felt the weight of every choice. One wrong word, one slow step, one miscalculated glance could be the end. He kept silent. He prayed quietly. He worked harder than he ever had in his life. But Angola always had one more test waiting. It was late afternoon, the sun low and burning orange. Marcus was hauling a heavy wheelbarrow of soil when he tripped over a root. Before he could stand, a guard's whip cracked the air. "Watch where you're going, boy." Marcus scrambled up, terrified, but the guard wasn't done. He pointed to another man and shouted, "You there, clean that spill now. Move." Marcus froze. The man he pointed at wasn't fast enough. The guard's anger boiled over. And then a loud smash echoed. The man had been thrown to the ground by the guard's horse. Silence fell. Dust hung in the air. The other prisoners held their breath. Marcus realized, in that instant, hard labor line wasn't just work. It was survival, and survival was brutal. As Marcus helped the fallen man up, the warden appeared at the gate. He walked slowly, scanning every prisoner like a predator circling prey. Then he stopped in front of Marcus. "I want to see what you're made of," the warden said coldly. "Tomorrow, you start the chain gang. Don't disappoint me." Marcus's heart sank. He had heard the chain gang was Angola's deadliest work detail. Those who went rarely returned the same, if they returned at all. Marcus woke before sunrise. The fields were still shadowed, and the air smelled of doubt, sweat, and fear. The warden's words echoed in his mind. "Tomorrow, you start the chain gang. Don't disappoint me." He had heard the stories. Men in the chain gang were chained together, forced to work the hardest jobs, with no breaks and no mercy. Some never made it back to the barracks alive. As Marcus approached the chain gang line, the sight took his breath away. Men shackled together, carrying massive logs, digging ditches under the blazing sun. Some grunted with pain. Some groaned quietly. Some didn't move at all, staring blankly at the sky. Marcus felt fear, but also something strange, a spark of determination. He would survive. Somehow, the guards yelled commands. "Pick up that log. Move faster. Eyes down." Marcus felt the weight of the heavy log on his shoulder. His arms trembled. His legs screamed. But he kept moving, step by step, chained to a stranger he didn't know. He stumbled once, and the man beside him whispered, "Keep going. If you stop, it's over." The chain gang wasn't just physical. It was mental. It was fear, sweat, pain, and silence, all crushing down at once. Marcus realized survival meant never thinking about the end, only the next step. That night, as Marcus lay in the barracks, his body aching, he opened the small Bible the older prisoner had given him. He read passages about strength, endurance, and hope. He whispered a quiet prayer. "Let me survive this. Let me see tomorrow." Somewhere deep inside, Marcus understood the truth about Angola. Faith wasn't just about religion. It was about holding on when everything wants to break you. The next morning, the chain gang was digging a trench for irrigation. The sun was high. Sweat poured down Marcus's face. The log felt heavier than yesterday. Then suddenly, a shout rang out from the guards. "Stop! Stop! The levee's breaking." Water from the nearby river started flooding the trench. Men screamed as mud and water poured over their boots, soaking the chains and making the logs impossible to carry. The guards yelled orders over the chaos, but the current was strong. Marcus was chained to a man who slipped, dragging Marcus down into the mud. Panic surged through him. He tried to pull free, but the chains held him tight. And then a massive tree limb cracked and fell toward the men, threatening to crush them all. Marcus ducked just in time, but the limb caught the man he was chained to. A loud crack echoed across the flooded field. The man screamed. Marcus realized in horror. Angola wasn't just hard work, it was a battlefield, and survival came at a cost. Marcus pulled himself up from the mud, coughing and shaking. The man beside him groaned, injured but alive. The other prisoners were scrambling, trying to avoid the rising water and fallen debris. The guards barked orders, but even they looked uneasy. Marcus realized one truth. Angola doesn't wait for you to be ready. You survive or you don't. He helped the injured man to his feet, ignoring the ache in his own shoulders. Every moment mattered. Every second could be life or death. That night, Marcus sat alone on the wet barracks floor, rubbing his sore arms. He opened the small Bible again, fingers trembling. He whispered prayers under his breath. "Give me strength. Give me clarity. Help me survive another day. He noticed something strange. While his body was weak, his mind was sharpening. He was learning how to read the gods, predict the dangers, and choose which fights to fight. Faith wasn't magic. It wasn't safety. But it gave him the strength to think, to endure, to survive. Over the next few days, Marcus noticed tension growing between the prisoners. Some were trying to take shortcuts. Some were arguing over work. And some were whispering about escaping. Marcus had to make a choice: join them, stay silent, or risk being punished by the gods. He stayed silent. He stayed focused. But Angola has a way of forcing men to make choices they never imagined. One evening, a fight broke out over food rations. Blows were thrown. Cries echoed through the barracks. Guards rushed in, separating men with batons and shouting orders. Marcus froze. He realized survival wasn't just about strength or faith. It was about making the right decisions under pressure. The next morning, Marcus was sent to the fields earlier than usual. He was exhausted, body aching, mind tense. While working, he noticed a prisoner trying to slip away from the line. Before Marcus could react, a guard spotted him. "Stop him!" the guard shouted. The prisoner ran. The guard chased. Chaos erupted. Marcus saw the guard swing his baton, catching the fleeing prisoner across the back. The man screamed, fell face first into the date, and the guards dragged him away. Marcus's heart pounded. He realized, in Angola, every choice, every second, could bring extreme pain, or death. Just as Marcus thought the day couldn't get worse, a warning bell rang across the prison. The warden's voice boomed over the loudspeaker. All prisoners report to the fields immediately. A new test begins. Failure is not an option. Marcus's stomach sank. He knew this meant something far worse than hard labor, and he had no idea if he would survive it. The first rays of sunlight barely cut through the mist when the warden rode into the yard. Marcus and the other prisoners froze. The warden's eyes scanned the line like a predator hunting. "Today," he boomed, "I separate the strong from the weak. Everyone who fails will pay the price." He gestured toward a flooded field. Logs, chains, and tools were stacked nearby. Marcus's stomach turned. He had heard stories. The field was a trap. The gods were merciless. He gripped the log he would carry and whispered a quiet prayer. "Let me survive this." The prisoners were chained in threes. Every step was heavier than the last. Mud sucked at their boots. Logs slipped from their hands. Chains dug into their wrists. A man next to Marcus fell under the weight of a log. His screams cut through the air. Marcus had a choice: keep moving or help him. He reached down and lifted the log with him, saving the man from the god's wrath. He realized something terrifying. Helping someone could cost him his life, but not helping could cost theirs. Halfway through, the river Levee gave way. Water surged across the field, swirling logs and chains like deadly toys. Men screamed. Mud and water mixed, pulling at their legs. Marcus clung to his log, dragging another prisoner to safety, heart pounding like a drum in his chest. The guard shouted over the chaos, "Finish or drown." Marcus dodged a floating log that slammed into the ground inches from his head. He coughed, sputtered, but didn't stop. Step by step, he moved forward, dragging the chain, pulling the fallen man, ignoring the ache in every muscle. Hours passed. Some men had given up. Some had been dragged away by guards for punishment. Marcus noticed quiet alliances forming among the survivors. A nod here, a helping hand there, small act that meant life or death. By late afternoon, only a handful of prisoners remained. Marcus's arms and legs were shredded, but he had made it across the field. The warden watched silently, then gave a rare nod. Marcus realized something. Angola doesn't break you just to punish you. It breaks you to test what survives inside. As Marcus returned to the barracks, exhausted and covered in mud, a distant alarm bell rang. The warden's voice echoed over the yard. All men to the fields. New orders. No excuses. Marcus's heart sank. He had survived the hardest test yet, but he knew Angola never truly lets you rest. Every day, every step, every choice was another fight for life. Marcus woke before sunrise again. His body ached like it had been through a storm. The mud from the flooded field still clung to his boots, his clothes heavy and wet. He walked to the barracks, silently observing the other prisoners. Some had injuries, some were silent, some muttered prayers under their breath. He realized something. Surviving Angola isn't about being the strongest. It's about enduring, one moment at a time. As Marcus prepared for the day, he thought about the lessons Angola had taught him. Hard labor tested the body. Fear tested the mind. Faith tested the spirit. He opened the worn Bible that the older prisoner had given him. He read a few quiet lines under the faint light of dawn, feeling the small spark of hope return. In Angola, hope was dangerous, but it was also necessary. The survivors of the previous day gathered quietly. They shared stories of near-death moments, of acts of kindness that had kept them alive, and of prayers whispered under the watchful eyes of guards. Marcus listened. He realized something powerful. Survival wasn't just about enduring pain alone. It was about small alliances, faith, and knowing when to act. Even in a place as brutal as Angola, human connection could be the difference between life and death. By midday, the warden appeared in the yard once more. "All men," he said coldly, "report to the field. Today, we see who truly survives Angola." Marcus joined the line. His arms burned, his legs trembled, but his mind was sharper than ever. The task? Haul massive logs across uneven ground, obey every command instantly, and demonstrate endurance under extreme conditions. As he carried the log, he saw a prisoner ahead stumble, nearly falling into the mud. Without thinking, Marcus grabbed his arm and helped him steady himself. The guard shouted. The sun beat down. The mud sucked at their boots. But Marcus moved forward, step by step, prayer by prayer. Suddenly, a massive log, loosened from earlier wake, rolled toward Marcus and the prisoner he was helping. Time slowed. Marcus lunged, throwing himself to the side and pushing the other man out of the way. The log smashed into the ground where he had been standing moments before. Dust and debris filled the air. Every prisoner around him froze. The guard barked orders, but Marcus didn't hear them. His heart was still racing. He had survived again, but he knew Angola would never stop testing him. By the evening, the surviving prisoners returned to the barracks. Exhaustion weighed on them, but there was a quiet sense of accomplishment. Marcus sat alone, reflecting. He had faced extreme labor, fear, violence, floods, and the chaos of survival. He had relied on faith, mental strength, and small acts of courage. He had endured. Angola had tested him, and in some strange way, it had made him stronger. He whispered a final prayer for the day. "I am still here. I survived. I will survive again." The next morning, Marcus woke before the guard's first whistle. The air was heavy with anticipation. He could sense it in the barracks. Something big was coming. The other prisoners moved quietly, some limping, some nursing bruises, some whispering prayers. Marcus felt a strange mixture of fear and determination. He tied his boots, checked his chains, and whispered to himself, "One more day, one more test. I will survive." The warden appeared in the yard, his horse's hooves striking the date. He didn't speak at first. He simply watched, scanning the prisoners as if weighing who was strong enough to live. "Finally," he said, "today you face the ultimate challenge. Hard labor, obedience, and endurance will decide who remains and who falls. The task: carry massive logs uphill across uneven ground. Maintain perfect formation. Do it under blistering sun and mud-filled trenches." The prisoners glanced at each other nervously. Marcus swallowed hard. He knew this would be the hardest day of his life. The work began. Logs slipped, chains dug into wrists, sweat burned eyes, and muscles screamed. A prisoner ahead collapsed. Guards shouted, swinging batons. Marcus lunged forward to help him up, risking punishment. The warden's eyes were on him, cold and calculating. Mud sucked at his boots. Logs shifted and nearly crushed him. He whispered a quiet prayer under his breath, counting each step like a mantra. Step, breathe, move, survive. Halfway through, a sudden crack echoed through the yard. A support beam on the hill they were climbing snapped, sending a massive log tumbling toward the prisoners. Screams filled the air. Marcus dove, pushing another man out of the way. The log smashed into the ground inches from where he had been standing. The guards yelled, the chains rattled, and the mud sucked at their boots. Marcus's heart pounded. Every muscle ached. But he kept moving forward. Hours passed. Some men had been dragged away, exhausted or injured. Some whispered prayers quietly, shaking from fear. Marcus continued, step by step, log by log. He remembered every lesson from hard labor line, chain gang, and previous extreme events. Faith, endurance, observation, courage. Every move mattered. Every second counted. Every choice could mean survival or death. Finally, the survivors reached the top of the hill. The warden's gaze swept across them. He didn't smile, but Marcus felt a quiet victory in his chest. He had survived Angola's hardest test. He had endured extreme labor, floods, falling logs, and the brutality of men and nature. He had held on to faith, determination, and humanity. Marcus whispered a final prayer. I survived. I endured. I will survive again. The other prisoners nodded silently. They had all changed. Angola had tested them to the limit, and some had survived not just a prison, but themselves. Even as night fell and Marcus returned to the barracks, the distant clanging of chains echoed across the prison. Angola never truly rested. Every day brought a new challenge, a new test, a new chance to fight for life. Marcus closed his eyes, bruised and battered, but alive. He had learned the truth. Faith, endurance, and the will to survive were stronger than any prison walls. And in that moment, Marcus knew. He was no longer just surviving Angola. He was learning to live, even in its shadows.